Talk more talk. Chat more chat.
Hey everyone, it's Darren DeVivo, and welcome to another episode of Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video podcast. We're with you approximately every other week with a show that deals with the four Beatles solo, although, if need be, we will talk about the band as a whole. Um, I've already introduced myself. I'm Darren DeVivo, veteran of New York City radio for over 40 years, and also co-host of Things We Said Today with Ken, who I'm about to introduce you to, and Alan Kozin. And with me here on Talk More Talk is Kit O'Toole, music journalist, educator, author, podcast co-host. She's here with Talk More Talk and co-hosts Toppermost of the Poppermost with Ed Chen and Martin Quibell.
You
I
got it.
practiced that. And in addition to that, Kit's written a couple of books, Songs We Were Singing, guided tours through the Beatles' lesser known tracks, as well as Michael Jackson FAQ, all that's left to know about the King of Pop. So, ladies and gentlemen, Kit O'Toole. How are you, Kit?
Thank you, sir. I'm doing really well. Looking forward to tonight's discussion. Will be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And Kit's got all the George Harrison album covers back there, including Extra Texture up there in the upper corner, released on this day, I believe, 50 years ago. We're recording this on September 22nd. That's right? Today's the
I think
50th
so.
anniversary. I don't know what made me think the album came out in November, but perhaps it did in Bolivia, but we don't know. And anyway, also my good friend Ken Michaels, a veteran of broadcasting for over 40 years in radio and currently the host of the syndicated Beatles show Every Little Thing. In addition to that, you can check out Ken all the time on his YouTube channel, Ken Michaels Radio, which is packed with interviews and other odds and ends. How often do you throw stuff up there? Is there any pattern, Ken? Or
I
is it
try to have
whenever?
one show a week, but sometimes I might have two.
And Every Little Thing is a syndicated show. There's a new show every week. At the end of this program, Ken will share the information on how you can listen. It's syndicated, how you can listen on demand, etc. Don't forget, Ken's also the host not only of Talk More Talk right here, but also with me and Alan Kozin on Things We Said Today. Today's theme is what we consider to be the three best years for the solo Beatles collectively, not John's best years, Paul's best years, all four of them, or maybe even it's a year where, it might be one or two of them. Years that each one of us feels were the best in the careers of. And that's again, technically you could say 68, but really starting with 1970. And we'll get to that in just a bit. But first, Ken has the news.
Okay, thank you, Darren. It's an action-packed newscast here because a lot has happened in the last couple of weeks. We'll start with Ringo Starr, who gave a press conference on September the 9th in Milwaukee to promote both his All-Star Band tour and his new art exhibit on display at the Animazing Art Gallery at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas, running now through October 15th, which includes his latest paintings done by the process called Spin Art. Ringo's current tour runs now through September 27th, with most of those dates at the Venetian Hotel. Ringo revealed that he has been working with T-Bone Burnett for a follow-up album to his critically acclaimed country album Look Up. He said that he finished his part. I guess that means his vocals and drumming for the album, and that he has covered a Carl Perkins song, and he co-wrote two new songs with his co-producer, Bruce Sugar, and that it'll be out next year. So that's great news. He didn't say EP, another
Yay.
album. So we should have new albums next year from Ringo and Paul.
Excellent.
All the band members spoke of how much fun they have going on tour together, and Steve Lukather called it the greatest job on planet Earth. Mark Rivera said that music is his emotional moat, You spread a lot of love and joy, and it's a distraction from the rest of the world. And Ringo said, playing gives us a different mood all the time, hanging out in a good space, and it centers the musical parts of our brains. And if I hear about anything more about Ringo's new paintings called Spin Art, if it's going to show up on the internet, I will certainly let you know right here. I'm curious to know what that looks like.
Me too.
Yeah,
What, the spin art?
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, you've seen some samples of it, have you not? Pictures?
I've seen the paintings that the computer art that he's done.
Yeah. Mhm.
So
Right.
I'm not sure what the spin art looks like, but we'll find out soon enough. Good news for many of us concerning the Beatles Anthology 4 that the 3 LP and 2 CD set will be available as a standalone release when it comes out November 21st. Okay. It's all because of Kit. She has
That's right.
here. It's 36 tracks, including 13 previously unreleased demos, outtakes, and rarities from 1963 through 69, plus new mixes by Jeff Lynne, Free as a Bird and Real Love, and the band's final single of Now and Then. The anthology collection includes remastered editions of volumes 1 through 3 by Giles Martin. Although, if you listen to our show on Things We Said Today, Alan Cozen has heard some of those tracks, and some of them, he says, are different. There are some remixes. Some of them are slight, but some work has been done in that regard. I'm not saying every single song is remixed.
Right.
And if you order the collection from the Beatles store, you'll get 4 exclusive art cards housed in hand-numbered envelopes. What a crazy week last week was. When on Monday we heard that Paul McCartney had added a show to his tour at Santa Barbara in California. The date for that show is September 26th. That's this Friday. But to get tickets, you had to register online just for a chance to possibly get tickets without even knowing the price. Now,
Wow.
this will be at the Santa Barbara Bowl, which has a capacity of 4,500 people. There was a 2 ticket limit per person, and I found out that the price of the tickets were $362, $462, and $562.
Jeez. Wow.
So I hope,
Actually, compared to some prices that have been thrown around, that's not terrible.
Yeah.
right.
A little out of control, but
Mhm.
Yeah, well, from what I've heard, that this is kind of like the going rate because it's an intimate show. And I heard that Van Morrison charged the same prices there. So,
there was I should have made note of this, and I'm kind of speaking out of turn here, and I may not be accurate, but I saw something just a couple of hours ago, just a headline zipped past my eyes where I don't know if it was the CEO of Ticketmaster or someone of power in one of these or said that tickets are actually undervalued, underpriced today. And his theory, I was like, I'm not reading this right now because I don't,
Mhm.
but
But yeah,
okay,
I
pal.
mean, yeah, because I mean, it's actually, as you said, Ken, it's not that out of line. Because I mean, like I was reading, Lady Gaga played here in Chicago last weekend, and they talked about nosebleed seats 400. So
mhm.
that's
Yeah, my
that's
daughter
pretty.
saw her at the garden and it was the same thing. I think she was
Yep.
sitting out by one of the food concessions in the corridor
Hmm.
at the top of Madison Square Garden because
Yep. So it's the going rate.
No, but at least this is a different situation being a
Yes,
smaller venue. So at
that's true.
least you're closer to the stage.
Yep.
So,
True.
all right. Well, hopefully some of you guys watching this have gotten tickets.
Hmm.
And we should know Friday night what songs he did
Hmm.
and whether or not that's going to be a full show. Because sometimes when he plays the smaller venues like the Highline Ballroom, they're not the full 3 hour concerts, but still gives you your money's worth.
Yep.
Also, don't need to tell Kit this. Spinal Tap 2 has already come out, and Paul has recorded one of Spinal Tap's classic songs, Cups and Cakes.
Yes.
And there is a scene with Paul in the film. Have you seen it, Kit? Like
I
on
haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to see it soon. I know I haven't yet. I know it's
I haven't
shocking.
either.
Yep, but I plan on it.
okay. I'm seeing it tomorrow, actually.
Nice.
So, but if you want to cheat, you can watch the scene with Paul. It's online on
Okay.
YouTube, but it's really funny. It's kind of reminds you a little bit of the Get Back sessions, what he's doing there.
Huh.
Anyway, Eric Clapton's 1989 album Journeyman is about to be released in a deluxe edition. The album included a song that George Harrison gave to him called Run So Far, which, of course, George's version turned up on Brainwash. But the deluxe version will have another song that George gave to Eric called That Kind of Woman. Now, Eric's recording of that song first came out as part of the charity album of Nobody's Child, which included the Traveling Wilburys recording of that song. George's duet with Paul Simon from Saturday Night Live of Homeward Bound, plus a live recording of Ringo of With a Little Help from My Friends, were all on that collection. This was for the Romanian Angel Appeal charity. And this, however, will be the first time that That Kind of Woman will be on an Eric Clapton album.
Hmm.
The release date for that is November 21st. Many thanks to Martin Quibell, who gave me this information.
Mhm.
Thank you, Darren, now that I know how to pronounce his last name.
Huh.
Also, and thanks to Beatle fan for this information, the Deerfield Beach Historical Society, in partnership with the city of Deerfield Beach, is thrilled to announce a once-in-a-lifetime exhibition of newly unearthed photographs featuring George Harrison, titled George Was Here, The Best Kept Secret in Deerfield Beach. It showcases rare and intimate glimpses of Harrison's secretive time visiting his family, who were residents in Deerfield Beach during a pivotal period in music history, November 1970, between the breakup with the Beatles and the release of the monumental, award-winning solo album, All Things Must Pass. The exhibition features a collection of 18 never-before-seen photographs capturing Harrison's moments of reflection, relaxation, and inspiration during his brief but profound visit to Deerfield Beach. Harrison was visiting his maternal uncle and aunt, Edmund and Mimi French, who resided in the area from 1967 to 1987. These images provide a rare insight into a period of transformation for one of the most iconic figures in music, who escaped the limelight of the Beatles after their breakup a few months prior by getting away to sleepy South Florida. Again, it's called George Was Here, The Best Kept Secret in Deerfield Beach. It's showing on Friday and Saturday, November 7th and 8th. On November 7th from 6 to 9 p.m. and November 8th from 1 to 8 p.m. It's going to be at the Johnny L. Tigner Community Center in Deerfield Beach. And for more information, you can contact this email, admin, ADMIN, at deerfield-history.org. Okay, anybody live in the Florida area, you might want to check that out.
Mhm.
Okay, well, you knew this had to happen someday. Think of someone in Beatle history whose name sticks out in your mind, who's never written an autobiography, and here's one that immediately comes to mind. The book is called For Me to You, Life and Love with the Beatles and Beyond by Thelma McGuff, the former Thelma Pickles. Thelma has been written up as John Lennon's first girlfriend, or one of his first girlfriends. And finally, her long-awaited book is coming out. It'll be out on hardcover on April 23rd next year. And frankly, this scares me.
Mm.
Paul might have to delay his new album when Thelma's book
Because of
comes out.
pickle?
Can't compete with Thelma's book.
I can't put my album out because of the pickle.
God, I've always thought, remember that name because when in 2000, when I went to England and went to London, went to Liverpool, and at one point I was doing the Magical Mystery Tour package where you drive around the bus and all. And at one point the tour guide started saying about, John's first girlfriend. And I was so excited about this whole thing. I wanted to raise my hand and said, "Oh, that would be Thelma Pickles."
Well, I don't know anyone, honestly, whose last name is Pickles. I don't know
I
if
know,
you, but
but it's a name you remember.
No, there was I forget what his Dilbert. I think it's Dill for short, was Dill Pickles, and never mind. It's a little talk, more talk humor, folks. Very
There you
little.
go.
And many thanks to our friend John Bazzini for letting us know about this book. It should be interesting. I
I
mean,
think so.
she's got to be in her early 80s now,
Yeah,
So maybe she'll be making the rounds.
maybe. May have to give her a call.
Denny Sywell has been a good friend to us through the years. He's appeared on my radio show, Every Little Thing, on Things We Said Today, on Talk More Talk. We've done several interviews with Denny. He is a great guest to have, and obviously the first drummer in Wings. He has a new book that's out now called The Best and Worst of Times, just released, and we should be speaking to him soon on this show and Things We Said Today. He is a delight because his memory is really sharp about those years, and to talk about Paul and how he had to deal with starting his career all over again with a new band.
Mhm.
It will be interesting when we have Denny on this
Yeah,
show and also Things We Said Today.
looking forward to it.
Got a few things more to get to here. Philip Norman has made a career of writing biographies of famous artists like the Rolling Stones, Elton John, Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, and Buddy Holly. He's best known to Beatle fans for having written the book Shout and biographies for John, Paul, and George. And now he has one coming out on Paul's birthday, June 18th, in which he will bypass Ringo
Mm.
and write one for Brian Epstein. It's called Mr. Moonlight, Brian Epstein, and the Making of the Beatles. Again,
Mm.
John Bazzini gave me this information. Thank you, John. So, another book to look forward to from Philip. Alan G. Parker, the director of the John Lennon documentary Borrowed Time, was recently on the Things We Said Today podcast, and he mentioned a DVD Blu-ray coming out soon. Since it's been 4 months since our interview, and it hasn't come out yet, I wrote to him asking why the delay. And he wrote back that the company who bought the film for DVD Blu-ray are doing a cinema presentation in New York City on December 8th.
Mm.
45 years since John's death. The physical releases will be later that week. So if you're waiting for it,
Mm.
there's your answer. I also found out today that there will be a film premiering at the Woodstock Film Festival called Everywhere Man, The Life and Times of Peter Asher. This will be on October the 15th at 7:45 p.m. at Bearsville Theater in Bearsville, upstate New York. This apparently blends rock. It's a rock documentary and memoir. It will also be shown October 16th at the Upstate Films. That's in Saugerties, New York, at the Orpheum Theater. If you need more information about this Peter Asher film, you can go to woodstockfilmfestival.org. And the Midnight Mission is an organization that helps the homeless in downtown LA. They'll be doing a charity concert called From LA with Love in Los Angeles on October the 2nd at the Alex Theater. Lawrence Juber will be among those performing, along with Richie Sambora and John Oates. It's presented by Norman's Rare Guitars, and Gibson Guitars will be donating 4 guitars for the event. For more information, you can visit this website, and I think we'll put all this information in our description box anyway.
Yeah.
tickets.evnsong.com/from LA with love. Jeff Slade and Friends doing their John Lennon birthday salute on October the 5th at Cafe Wah in New York City. That's at 6:30 p.m. Billy J. Kramer will be in concert with The Circle. Really cool
Mm.
that the two of them paired up together, along with the 60s band called 60s Thunder. That's at the Regent Theater in Arlington, Massachusetts on November the 16th. And there'll also be that John Lennon tribute show from Theater Within, which they've been doing a tribute to John every year since his death. We did an interview with the guy who organized it and organizes it every single year, Joe Raiola, on Things We Said Today. This will happen on December 12th at Town Hall in New York City. There'll be a Real Love Award presented to Judy Collins. She'll be there. Graham Nash will also be on hand, Jimmy Webb, and also Suzanne Vega. And if you need more information about that, you can visit LennonTribute.org. And then, finally, there's the Everything Fab Four Fest. We should have been talking about this before. This is a convention to salute the 60th anniversary of Rubber Soul, although the entire convention won't be strictly about Rubber Soul, mainly about it, but there'll be other topics too. It's happening November 6th at 5 p.m. through November 8th at 10 p.m. at the Berkeley Oceanfront Hotel in Asbury Park. There'll be panel discussions, also performances all 3 days. And we here at Talk More Talk will be doing our own panel on the Friday. That's November 7th at 9 a.m. Special guests for this event during the weekend include Max Weinberg, The Weaklings, Jamie Bernstein. Jamie is the daughter of Leonard Bernstein. Nellie McKay, recording artist Nellie
Hi,
McKay. McKay?
Nellie Mackay. Yeah, Mackay.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, that's okay. Black Rabbit, they're a great duo there that
Awesome.
they became known for playing Beatles songs on the New York subway. There was a whole story done on them, and they appeared on Ellen DeGeneres' show. And then Charles Rosenay presented them the first time they were ever at a Beatle convention at the Fab Four Music Festival several years ago. And more recently, they were also at the Fest for Beatle fans.
Yep.
So I'm sure you've caught them to really perform Beatles songs magnificently.
They nail the harmonies. It's really great.
Yeah, Bob Santelli will be there. He is the director of the Bruce Springsteen Archives. Rob Sheffield, rock journalist Rob Sheffield, the Magical Mystery Girls will be there. And a portion of the proceeds will go to the Light of Day Foundation. If you need more information, just go to ef4fest.com. And one last thing, we send out happy birthday wishes to, I know I have it here somewhere, but Zach Starkey turned 60 years old on
Wow.
September the 13th. And that same day, September 13th, it was Stella McCartney's birthday also. So 71, she's 54. They
Mhm.
share the same birthday. Happy birthday to Zach and Stella. Okay. How does that make you feel knowing that the son of one of the Beatles is 60? Well, Julian's older. So
That's
he's
right.
62 now.
Yeah. Wow.
There you go.
I'm having problems coming to terms with turning 60 myself. So
Yes. Right.
it's 8, it's 12 up here, but
Mhm.
the rest of it is 60 now.
That's right.
What matters is what's up here, though.
Mhm.
That explains a lot actually about me. Is that the end of your news?
That's it. I think that's enough.
Yes.
All right.
More than
Yeah,
enough for
newsy
people.
kind of guy you are, Ken.
Mhm.
Thank you, Ken, for the news and on to our topic today. And I have to bring up here my little cheat sheet because how I worded, how I want to word this correctly here. What we're talking about on today's show, collectively for the solo Beatles, what we consider to be the 3 best years. Now, what is best? And that would be up to our interpretation. Is it, commercial success, concerts, personal success, all that rolled into one? And what year had the most success for the solo Beatles? And it doesn't have to be a year that all 4 of them were active. Unfortunately, it could be a year after John's death, or that fell after George's death, or a year that maybe someone didn't have any music out. So we'll start off with, what do you mean? Start off with Ken
Uh,
and see what 3 years Ken considers to be the best for the solo Beatles collectively. You're on the
okay.
air.
This wasn't difficult for me, actually. anyone who's followed me knows what my number one year is, which I'll get to. But I think what might surprise people is my number three pick, which is 1989. 1989 was the year that Flowers in the Dirt came out, and it's gone on to become my favorite McCartney album. Unfortunately, it's the only solo Beatle album that came out that year.
Yeah.
I happen to love that album to death. I never get tired of hearing it. I love the variety on it. Um, but it was also the year that Paul McCartney toured for the first time since the 1979 UK tour, but also the first time he toured the US since 1976. So that's 13 years. For many years, I kept questioning, will he ever come back? Will he ever come back? And he did in a big way. And, not knowing how often he would tour after this, it's like, let's go crazy. And I remember when he played at Madison Square Garden in December of '89, he did four shows, and I went to three of them.
Mm.
Now, that's a lot for me. Fortunately, the tour continued and I saw more shows of that, but I was thrilled with the tour. Um, even though I would rather see him play more solo music than Beatles, he never went gangbusters on the Beatles until that year, and he's been that way ever since. But it was nice to hear him do all these songs that he's never done live before from the Beatle years, as well as really promote Flowers in the Dirt. And I think the band that he had then was excellent. I've loved all the bands he's had. Um, but in addition to all that, something else happened that year that none of us, I think, could ever have anticipated. Ringo Starr toured for the first time ever with his all-star band.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing, "Oh, Ringo's going to tour. Ringo's going to tour." And I talked about it on my radio show, and I doubted it because I thought Ringo, of all, of the three surviving Beatles, he's the least likely to tour. I thought, how's he going to perform? Can he cover an entire show by himself? This is before I even heard about the All-Star Band concept. But he did, in fact, tour. And he said a number of times that for his first tour, he really wanted to pad the lineup there because of his insecurities. And he had, members of the band there and Bruce Springsteen's band. And my God, Billy Preston was on stage with him. And, I've loved all the All-Star Band lineups, as I've said many times here, and I have my favorites, but sometimes there's nothing like the first time. And just to see him enjoy himself, go out there on stage, play songs from the Beatle days, play It Don't Come Easy, play songs from Time Takes Time, which, um, actually, wait a minute.
No, he
He
wasn't playing
didn't.
them
He
yet.
No.
didn't in that
No.
first year. He couldn't have because Time
Mm.
Takes Time was 1992.
Yep.
But still, in 1992, he did start to play Weight of the World and Don't Go Where the Road Don't Go. But even
Right.
still, it didn't matter. Ringo's doing this. And it was a real shock to me. And the fact that you had Paul and Ringo in the same year touring. And now we take it for granted. We just expect Paul every year to be playing somewhere and Ringo to keep touring because he loves doing it so much. But this was the first time this ever happened. So it was a monumental year for me, despite the fact that there was only one solo Beatle album. So I picked 1989 as my number three choice. Am I going to name all three of mine all at once?
Or do we
Yeah,
want
do them all.
I'll do them all? Okay.
Or,
Um,
yeah, no, do them all. That way we stay in what your mindset is and don't get mixed up with jumping from host to host. So
Yeah.
number two for you is
1970.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you could ignore 1970 being the year publicly when the Beatles broke up, but so much material came from them. You had two albums from Ringo and Sentimental Journey and Bukus of Blues. You had the first McCartney album. You had the Plastic Ono Band album and All Things Must Pass. Now, from All Things Must Pass alone, it was an amazing year. And just to experience the fact that George gave us this wealth of great material, just for that alone, we knew he was capable in the Beatle years. We knew he gave us great songs from the Beatle days, but usually he would get us two or three songs at the most on a Beatles album. Here is two full albums plus an album of jamming, and what a treat. It was like something miraculous happening here. You realize that he'd been held back in the Beatles, and some of these songs he wrote during the Beatle years, and it's almost a flawless album for me. You know,
Mhm.
I don't know if I necessarily need Isn't It a Pity version 2, but everything else on All Things Must Pass, I love to death. And so Plastic Ono Band was an album that took me years to really appreciate. It was a really rough listen. For then, I was 11 years old, and I didn't really need to hear, you know, all these songs of anguish and pain that John was going through. Now I look at it as a masterpiece, as I hope most of us do. And so that's an album that took a while for me to realize what a great album it was. I love the bareness and the rawness of the first McCartney album. Not just Maybe I'm Amazed. There's a lot of great songs on there. And for people who love the acoustic stuff that Paul does, Every Night's got to be a favorite. Teddy Boy's got to be up there. Manu Was Lonely, Junk. A lot of people, those are favorites. So, and I like the instrumentals on there too. It's a very odd way, I think, for him to start his solo career. You would have
Mm,
thought
yeah.
coming off
Yeah.
of something so polished as Abbey Road,
Mhm.
he would go into something. Well, actually, he waited till Ram to do that. But I love the McCartney album, and the first two Ringo albums are a delight for me. It's a lot of fun to listen to Sentimental Journey. You can argue all you want about Ringo as a vocalist and whether or not he's suitable singing these songs. I think his voice worked on most of them. And, I think the arrangements were really great. The fact that each song had a different arranger made it very cool. And George Martin produced the album. And I really, I don't think people give Ringo enough credit for being, I think, the very first rock star to do an album of standards. Later on, Linda Ronstadt did it, and we all know Paul did it, and Rod Stewart's had tremendous success with it. But Ringo was doing this back in 1970. He wasn't trying to start a trend. It was what he felt like doing in the moment to please his parents. But it's a pretty interesting album to listen to. And Buku's of Blues is an album that I've grown to really love over the years because, as we've said many times, Ringo's voice is so suitable for country music. He loves country music. Some of the songs on there are just very strong, like Fastest Growing Heartache in the West and $15 Draw, and it's produced impeccably well. Even when you listen to the CD, you can hear what a great production was put behind it. So yeah, I like those two albums. You can call them curios if you want, but I think Buku's of Blues demands more attention. And I do like Sentimental Journey a lot. So just in terms of the amount of albums that came out that year, it's hard to top a year when all four Beatles put out an album each. And in the
Mhm.
case of Ringo, he put out two, and George's was a double album plus an album of jamming. So you put all that together in one great big ball, and that was an amazing year.
Mhm.
So
Number one.
it's hard for me to think anybody would pick anything other than 1973 because the stars were all aligned that year. Living in the Material World is my favorite album from any artist. And I think you're probably tired of hearing me go on and on and on about living in the material world, but I just think it's filled with gorgeous songs melodically. I love the production, George's guitar playing, and songs that are so deeply meaningful to him. I've said it many times, The Light That Has Lighted the World, Be Here Now, Who Can See It? Extremely powerful songs, very similar to me of what John was doing with Plastic Ono Band. Um, Look at Paul, Red Rose Speedway, Band on the Run, and the single of Live and Let Die, all in the same year. How do you top that? Really? I mean, Band on the Run is a classic. Love all the songs from Band on the Run. Red Rose Speedway, I've always loved. I love that album even more now. Um, and I like the single version of Red Rose Speedway. I know a lot of people appreciate it as a double album now, but that's fine. So many gems that Paul put out that year, and Little Lamb Dragonfly is in the upper echelon of
Yeah.
great Paul McCartney songs, as is um, just about all of Ben on the Run. And then you've got Mind Games, which has become my favorite John Lennon solo album. I like all the songs on there. Although Only People is probably the weakest for me. But so many amazing ballads like Out the Blue and I Know, and You Are Here, One Day at a Time. I mean, if you ever want to really learn how to appreciate Mind Games, get that box set. So many different takes, the elemental mixes, hearing the songs without drums, hearing the songs without vocals, hearing all the work that was put into the musicianship. Mind Games has always been the most underrated John Lennon album ever. And I love that album. And then how can you go wrong with the Ringo album? Everybody loves the Ringo album. All four Beatles are on it. He's got great contributions from Vinnie Poncia, who he wrote songs with, and a Randy Newman song. And, we talk about country music and Ringo, Sunshine Life for Me, which George wrote, is so ideal for him. It sounds like you're at the Hootenanny with Ringo there. And I love Oh My My. It's a great single right there. Photograph is one of the greatest songs of his entire career. Love the opening with I'm the Greatest. There's so much on that album. You and Me, Babe is one of the greatest album closers ever. The cover of You're 16, I love so much. 6 o'clock is the best song Paul ever wrote for him. So there's so much going on that year. And of course, on the group side, you also had the Red and the Blue album coming out that year. And I like to think that the Beatles solo careers and how well they were doing helped the sales of the Beatle albums and vice versa. Plus, Billy Preston had a great year that year, with Will It Go Around in Circles being a #1 hit. So there's so many things going on in 1973. I'm not someone that says, "Oh, take me back, take me back," except if I'm singing Junior's Farm at the very end. But if I could ever go back to any year and relive the year, 1973 would be it.
All right. Stole virtually everything from me.
I know, damn it. But no, I got some backups.
Okay, folks, just a little programming note here. Everything that Ken just said, ignore it. Don't pay any attention to anything he just said. Let's start the show here with Kiddo 2 and her picks for the 3 best years for the solo Beatles collectively.
Okay, now.
Why don't you do what Alan Kozin does?
What's that?
He'll change his picks if any of them are the same as mine or yours.
Oh, I've changed them already twice.
I've already done it.
Since we're recording. You see me crazily writing stuff down
notes.
Here? Scratch that out.
I figured this might happen, so I've got backups, and that's what I'm going to do. And actually, I'm okay with this because pretty much all 3 of the years I've chosen have to do with reinvention, creative reinvigoration, and also just personally, there's some great memories I have with these years. So so now the bad news is there won't be any John in this list, and I hate to do that, but that's the way it's going to go. So everything Ken said about those years and having to do with John, that's I completely agree. Okay, so number 3, you actually alluded to this year already, Ken, which is 1992, the year that Ringo came back in, well, I was going to say a big way. It should have been an even bigger way because that album, Time Takes Time, should have done a lot better than it did. But regardless of the sales, I mean, what a comeback. Here's somebody who, had gone through a difficult time in the 80s, to say the least, and had to kind of start from scratch. And he had already started in 89, as you mentioned, Ken, with the All-Star Band. And then in 92, he comes out with Time Takes Time. And I just felt like, this was a really rejuvenated Ringo. It's one of my favorite albums of his. So many songs from that album are outstanding. I mean, Weight of the World, to start with that single, it was just, just a delight. And you just thought, wow, Ringo is really found his way. He was working with the top producers. I mean, Jeff Lynne, Don Was one of my favorites. Phil Ramone, I think he was part of that as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, just some great productions, and I mean, so many other classic tracks from that. Don't Go Where the Road Don't Go.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's one of my favorites. Golden
One of my
Blund-
favorites. Yeah.
Yep, isn't great. Golden Blunders, What Goes Around. I mean, the list is it's just on and on. They really did, these producers did a great job along with Ringo of picking songs and writing songs for him that really worked
Hmm.
with his voice. And then that year he was on tour with another all-star band, and they even played Montreux Jazz Festival, which that's a pretty big honor.
Yeah.
If you're going to play Montreux Jazz Festival, and I mean, what a lineup! Joe Walsh, Niles Lofgren, Todd Rundgren, Dave Edmonds, Timothy B. Schmidt, Burton Cummings, and Zach. I think Zach Starkey was on that tour as well. And I mean, it's just, what that really was an all-star lineup. So it just was a great year, for Ringo, that even though I know the album didn't sell as well as they'd hoped, and he ended up unfortunately being dropped from that label, although we know there was a happy ending ultimately. But
Hmm.
what a joy to hear that album, and to hear Ringo really coming back strong. So
You
that's
know what was weird? What was weird about that? The fact that it didn't sell. This is 1992, and I'm at WFUV Radio, and Private Music was the label.
yeah,
And Private Music was one of these indie labels that was really picking up momentum in the early 90s, and they were beginning to sign a lot of very cool but niche, if that's a word. It is
yep,
now.
it is now.
Niche artists that kind of were now appealing to an older audience. They had a track record behind them, but they didn't like sell. Here we are in the early 90s, tons of records. Leo Kottke comes to mind, was on Private Music. And of course, the other names. This is many years ago, folks. I want to say Ricky Lee Jones, but I'm not sure. I don't think she ended up on Private Music. But it was a perfect label for Ringo.
Yep,
And
seemingly.
and yeah, it didn't pan out, and then the label went poof,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
so when times takes time,
hmm That
which was a
that's
shame. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think too, being a smaller label, and all, I've said this all along. I think the promotion could have been a lot better. Yes, there was a video, I know, for Weight of the World. And I do remember I subscribed to Musician Magazine at the time,
yeah,
a
yep.
greatly missed magazine. And they used to include with some issues like a sampler CD of like the as I recall, the latest, some noteworthy songs. And Weight of the World was on one of those collections. I
Huh.
remember that. And so, yes, they did some promotion, but obviously it could have been a lot better. But regardless, I just think that's one of Ringo's strongest. And Ringo, bring back some of those songs on tour. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear them now, and I think people would love to hear it.
I pulled
Revisit
up
them.
a partial list here. In Private Music, besides Ringo, they had signed people like and released albums by folks like Taj Mahal, Etta James, Jennifer Warrens, the Fabulous Thunderbirds,
Oh,
Kate and Anna McGarrigle, Kenny
mhm.
Rankin, which don't think I knew, AJ
Oh, I didn't know.
Croce,
Hmm.
Susan Werner, and more. And it just was kind of shaped up to be a good label for Ringo to be on. And then poof, Andy
Yeah.
Summers did a solo album for them, and
Oh.
even Yanni was on
Oh,
Private
wow.
Music. Um, the label shut down in the mid 90s. But um, anyway, but yeah, that was a surprise. I remember when it came out and it was so popular,
Mhm.
grabbing copies of Billboard, going, and where is it?
Yeah.
Because it was getting great press and it was getting
Mhm.
play.
And
No,
great
no,
reviews. I mean,
no. Where
And
is
Weight of
it?
the World was on MTV and
yes,
V.
so what H1? Yes, I
Yeah.
remember seeing it. Absolutely. So I don't know.
Not only that, but Ringo was picking up steam from the '89 tour and also being in Tom Petty's video for I Won't Back
Oh,
Down.
right.
Saw that too.
Yep.
So
Oh
it
yeah.
there.
Hmm.
That was like a few years right before. Time
Hmm.
takes time.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, so that's number three. So number two, and this is one that it's also kind of personal, great memories for me. In 1987, when this album came out, Cloud Nine, George Harrison, uh, what a comeback that was. And
Yeah.
what I loved about it was, I mean, for many things, but I was a sophomore in high school. I was really getting into not only the Beatles, but the solo stuff. And I would try to get my friends, interested in it too, and they were just kind of, oh, whatever. And then when Got My Mind Set on You came out, and that video, I mean, I know there are a couple of
Mhm.
videos, a version, but the one of him sitting in the living room and doing the
Right.
flips and all that, that's the one that was played the most. And I remember my friends saying, wow, who's this guy? you know, that's a great song, and I'd be like, I told you, So it really was an exciting time because the album, I mean, Cloud Nine, of course, I mean, what can you say? It was just a fantastic album. Really, I think a great example of bringing somebody into, in this case, the 80s, updating, as Jeff Lynne did, some of the production and so forth, but it was still in keeping with George's style. I mean, it
Mhm.
never really sounded like he was doing anything, he wasn't trying to rap or something like that. I mean, that would have been ridiculous. I mean, but that could have happened. But no, I mean, Jeff was, excellent at saying, no, 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 we don't want to change the essence of George, just update his sound a bit,
Mhm.
and Cloud Nine definitely did that. I mean, there's so many. I mean, yeah, and Got My Mind Set on You was first number one hit in how many years? I mean, it was a long, long time.
In '73.
Yeah, I was thinking that probably it was 73 or so. So
Give Me Love. Yeah.
yep, number one hit for him. And there were so many other strong tracks. And when we was Fab, when you were talking about Ringo appearing in videos, he appeared in that one.
Mm.
You saw the humorous side of George that we all knew was there, of course. But let's face it, in the early '80s, it wasn't a great time for him. I mean, with John's death, with Von Troppo, I mean him just kind of in general kind of souring on the music business. And
Mhm.
so to come back again in this very joyful way, kind of I know the comeback kind of started with that Carl Perkins
Mhm.
concert did, but this was sort of the culmination of it. And there's just so many. I love Fish on the Sand.
Yeah.
This Is Love. I Wreck of the Hespers. I mean, there isn't really a bad track on that album. I mean, it's just so well done. So it was just great to see him come back, and playing music again, but coming back in such a big way. So,
Mhm.
and as I said, my friends finally saying, "Oh, okay, I think I
Oh,
see why you like
okay.
this guy."
Mhm.
And
Number
is
one.
number one is 2005
Wow.
because that was a big year, mainly for Paul. Although Ringo had some things I think in 2005 as well. Yes, Choose Love came out, which was part of his like yet another kind of comeback. But Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, I just think what in a way was a rejuvenation, a creative rejuvenation for Paul. You know,
Mhm.
he had come off, of course, Driving Rain, which definitely got mixed, mixed reaction from fans and commercially. And as we know, he was also going through, when this album was coming out, some personal issues, in his marriage and so forth. And so he drops this album, and it just sounds like nothing else that he had done. Maybe a bit like McCartney in terms of the intimacy of it,
Mhm.
but we hadn't heard him really get this personal in a long time, with things like Writing to Vanity Fair. And I mean, that was the song that really struck me, where I just thought, wow,
Mhm.
he's really letting us in here, in
Yeah.
a way he never had before. And the songs were just so, as I said, so intimate, uh, so introspective. His voice, was in great shape. And worked with a producer who really pushed him, I think,
Yeah.
to, which I wish he'd work with him again, because I think he really pushed him in his songwriting, to be more, honest and to try different things. I even liked some of the, the bonus, like the kind of B sides. I don't really call
Mhm.
them that anymore, but so he was really in a creative mood. And speaking of creative mood, the other release that Paul came out with that year was Twin Freaks,
Mm.
Oh
which
yeah.
I love Twin Freaks. I mean, with Freelance Hellraiser, as I'm sure everybody remembers. I mean, I just love the reimagining and remixing of his songs. And it later became kind of de rigueur, before his concerts. He would have
Yeah.
Mhm.
mashups and everything. But this is the first that I remember that he had, released an album of his own, of various mashups. And like the Temporary Secretary remix, as
Yeah.
the kids say, that's a banger. I mean, it really is. I love that remix.
Was it DJ Freelance Hellraiser?
Yes.
I think was the name of
Mhm.
the guy who was the other half of Twin Freaks, and he
Yes.
wasn't he like on stage like as an opener
Yes. Yep.
for
He
that
did that
tour?
too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Paul went on tour later in 2005. And so that was just such a big year for him. And I just think that was just a time for him, as I said, despite, what we think was going on personally and all that, it really, in a way, reinvigorated him in terms of, not only creativity but kind of experimenting with different kind of sounds. And it's one of my Chaos and Creation is one of my favorite albums of Paul's. So
Yep.
Mine too.
so 2005 was an outstanding year.
What's
What
really
I remember about Chaos. I'm sorry, Ken. Go ahead.
what's really interesting to me is that I think most of our viewers would probably be saying, well, it's got to be the first 5 years, 1970 to
Hmm.
75, because you had the most albums coming out and all four Beatles were alive. And every year
Hmm.
you had either two, three, or four albums. So how can you top those years?
Hmm.
But to say that if you pick a year like Kit and I did, where there's only one solo album, that must be a pretty powerful album for us,
Yeah.
compared to another year where there's two, three, or four albums. So, but also the touring makes a difference,
Hmm.
I think, and I love the appreciation for Chaos and Creation and Choose Love.
Yeah.
The albums that he did with Mark Hudson were phenomenal, and I
Hmm.
think they're amongst
Hmm.
the best in his solo career. I still love the stuff post Mark Hudson too, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's very interesting to hear any year after 1975 being
Hmm.
chosen. 76, I should say, because you had
Hmm.
three solo albums plus Paul's tour.
Oh, all right.
But
Can we
anyway,
mute his
before I
mic because he's? I mean,
before I say
here,
a year
here's.
that you're gonna pick,
Yeah.
Let me throw my notebook out, all my notes. Ken's just mentioned every year. Um,
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks for tuning in. I'm gonna like what I'm gonna do is pick 2026 as my first year. I'm gonna like project ahead. Um, yes, Ken did steal all my, and it was funny. It was like you were reading my notes. Not you didn't steal them. I knew I should have went first, but I'm kidding. But what was funny was that each year that you picked Ken, was a year I was going with, and it was like you were reading my notes on what we felt were the highlights, bringing those particular years up. But um, interesting how I was able to pivot almost immediately to backup picks. And I love what Kit did and went for later years and years that had that personal thing for you, personal recollections that made those years special.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I can't read my notes now anymore. No, I'm kidding. Um, I was going to go with 73. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go in chronological order. I'm not going to, I'm not going to go favorite, number two, number one, just because I could feed off of things that both of you said. I'm going to start off with 1971, which kind of feeds off of 70. 70 is an obvious pick and a strong pick. And it was going to be my first backup. We have the emergence of Ringo as a solo artist, the emergence of Paul. Ken laid out all of that. But 71, we have spillover success for Harrison. A lot of the success of All Things Must Pass came in 71 calendar year. And My Sweet Lord and the album were out in late November, but as the calendar switched to 71, that album and My Sweet Lord were probably still fixtures on the charts. And then came
What is life?
Thank you. And then came What Is Life? And that was the Made All Things Must Pass, the first solo album from one of the Beatles to have more than one hit single from it, at least in the countries where What Is Life came out as a single, like in the US. And the stage was now set for George's concert for Bangladesh. Credited as the first benefit concert. What a magnificent moment, what a historical moment the concert for Bangladesh was. Um, and then at the end of the year, of course, comes the album, which would win a Grammy for Album of the Year, which I think was in 72 or possibly 73. It won the Grammy.
72. I think
72.
Yeah.
So without having without having released an All Things Must Pass within the January-December calendar year, the overflow of its success into 71, the concert for Bangladesh itself made that a really big year in the career of George Harrison. And for Ringo Starr, coming off his two albums that he released within 6 months of each other in 1970, and I'd love to go back because I was 5 years old at the time. I'd love to go back and just observe and read and get people's reactions to Ringo coming out with an album right in there with George and with John and with Paul, and then boom, he's back in 6 months with number two. But nothing blew. They weren't massive chart successes, either album. And the Bukus of Blues single, it just appeared on the charts and was gone. So 71 was the year where Ringo really enjoyed his first true commercial success with the Don't Come Easy, which went down not only to be a massive hit, but one of to me, Ringo had two signature songs, It Don't Come Easy and Photograph. And the first of those two was It Don't Come Easy. So here you had the Beatles drummer putting out two albums in 1 year, following it up when maybe the skeptics, the non-fans were going to be quick to brush Ringo aside. Oh, they were just kind of niche records, and here comes Ringo, and he's in the top 10 on the charts with a genuinely great single that would have been a massive hit for the Beatles had they stayed together. I can see that being a Beatles song in 71. So with George, a historic year, Ringo's first taste of commercial success. Then there's John. John's a little disappointed in 71 because the critics worshipped his album, John Lennon Plastic Ono Band, but it was not quite the big seller that maybe it should have been.
Yeah.
I also wonder if, when he closed his eyes in bed at night, if he thought, McCartney went to number one with that piece of trash.
Mhm.
And here, I've got an album that everyone's speaking so highly about. And yet, I mean, if you could call an album, I think it topped at number 6 on the charts, something like that in the US.
Plastic
Last,
Ono Band?
yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
it was around 6. Now, taking into consideration McCartney went to number one, All Things Must Pass went to number one. I'm sure John would have liked a little more, um, you know, commercial success with that record. Well, in 71, um, everything got on track for him. Power to the People was a massive hit, released the day before my 6th birthday in 71. Power to the People, did it crack the top 10?
Went to 11.
Just missed, right.
Mm.
Okay. Um, and then, of course, later in the year comes Imagine. And it was the perfect response for John to John Lennon Plastic Ono Band. How can I deliver the message and get more people to pay attention to it? Strings, the Flux Fiddlers. He sweetened the songs up a bit, and he had his number one album. And we know what a massive hit Imagine was here in the US. Although it didn't hit number one in America and only made it to number 2 and wasn't a
3.
single. Three,
3.
oh, it didn't reach 2.
3 in Billboard. I don't know about Cashbox.
And then it was and then Happy Christmas War is Over coming out at the end of the year. That was sort of like a time released success. It came out and I don't think it got much mileage in 71 when it was released. Came out too close to Christmas. But as the years passed, I don't have to elaborate anymore what that song became.
Mhm.
And then McCartney comes out for a solo album, no singles. Boom, it goes to number 1, despite getting thrashed in the press, McCartney album. But in 71, Paul gets on track like Ringo. Here Comes Another Day, top 10 hit. February 71. Ram comes out, goes to almost to number 1, number 2. Uncle Albert Admiral Halsey, the single from Ram in the US, Paul's first number 1 hit. Much more successful than the singles that were released overseas from the album, but here in the US, um, Paul's enjoying the type of commercial attention that he deserves, and we know that Ram has gone on years past, years later. Ram goes on to become one of his most loved albums, which it wasn't in 71, but and then he forms Wings, which I think was a very brave thing to do. So close to the Beatles, Paul decides, you know what? I miss being in a band. I'm going to form a new band. And regardless of what comments were made or questions about should Paul be doing this or who are these musicians that he's working with, because Denny Sywell was not a household name, and what's Paul's wife doing in a rock band? And oh yeah, I remember Denny Lane. Where's he been? Wings was a bold move, and they debuted in a bold fashion in 71 with a very raw, down to earth album. Um, so, Wings debuting in 71 with the historic year that Bangladesh that was for George, John's success, and Ringo having his first hit single, I made me realize, 71, I don't think of it, but 71's a biggie. And for the same reason, I'm going to go as a backup pick, 1974. Actually, I shouldn't say that. 1974 was one of my main 3. Honestly, if I did this show alone and I just picked, I would pick 73 first. But if you think about it, 74 the band success of Band on the Run was mostly in 74.
Mhm.
That came out as a single in early 74. Um, Band on the Run was a single, I think, spring into summer of 74. Went to number one. The album hit number one, and that would have been probably in 74, the beginning of the year, I would think, having been released in Band on the Run came out at the end of November, I think, getting in December
Yeah.
73, something like that.
Yeah. November,
So-
December.
Yeah, it was late in the
Wing-
year. I know
November,
that.
early December. Yeah.
Wings really took off in 73, and in 74, they were in cruising altitude. And then, of course, following Band on the Run, another top 10 hit with Junior's Farm.
Right.
And Wings were ready really to conquer
Mhm.
by 75. 73 was 74 rather. 74 again, spillover for George, the residual good feelings of living in the material world. Made 74 a nice year, an optimistic year. I'm sure George launches his own record company. And as the year progresses, is recording an album and is planning his first tour. Of course, we know by the end of 74, the tour was widely criticized. Some people who got to see him in 74 say that he didn't deserve to be um, that criticized. The tour was pretty good, and um, but George goes out on tour at the end of the year for the first time, puts out the Dark Horse album. So not the greatest year for George, but still. Um, It was a good one. And then there's Ringo. And you don't realize that a lot of Ringo's success with his third album, Ringo, was in 74 because the album did come out like in December, well, the fall, November or something like that. Again,
Mhm.
uh, Photograph number one hit. I would think it was probably near the top of the charts when the calendar flipped to 74 and then goes to number one with the next single.
Year
Um,
16.
Thank you, You're 16. And then Oh My My is a top 10 hit. Now Ringo is outselling some of the big names in music, period. And Goodnight Vienna comes out nearly repeats the success that Ringo was, the Ringo album. And Ringo goes to number one with Only You and You Alone.
Mhm.
No.
It did
Oh,
not. It was top
no.
10, though. It was
Only
top
you
10.
went to number 6.
Okay. And then he was back with No No Song, was another big hit.
Number 3.
And then unfortunately, it kind of started to hit a wall there by the end of the year. It's All Down to Goodnight Vienna was a top 40 hit. I remember
Mhm.
hearing it on the radio a lot. I always thought it was
Mhm.
more successful than it was. But that was a big year for Ringo, Ringo's second most successful year. Um, and John, while Mind Games might not have blown folks away commercially, and I think a lot of fans sort of looked past Mind Games, even those who might have liked it ultimately by 74 was kind of forgotten it was there. Walls and Bridges, for my money, is my favorite John album, and I think his best for several reasons. I understand what people have to say about Plastic Ono Band and Imagine, but Walls and Bridges was such a solid record, and it was the big hit that John deserved. He
Yeah.
was back at the top of the charts, had his first number one hit, Whatever Gets You Through the Night. And that makes 74 something special. And
Mhm.
I'll speed it up a bit. I'll just kind of piggyback off Ken's pick of 1989 because of the first tour for Ringo and Flowers in the Dirt, Paul's first tour. And for me personally, the first four McCartney shows. I went to all four of those Madison Square Garden shows that first week in December. It was a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, if I remember correctly. Um, and in early December, I think it was the first week in December. And Flowers in the Dirt was a terrific record. It was as much as I loved, and we've talked about this recently, Press to Play.
Mhm.
There was something about Flowers in the Dirt being a cohesive album that was easier. It was easier for the masses to appreciate than Press to Play was, I think.
Mhm.
I like both albums about equally for totally different reasons.
Hmm.
But I don't think, Ken, you mentioned, did you mention Traveling Wilburys
No, I didn't.
when you talked about 89? And it was another case of a late 88 release
Mhm.
that spilled into 89. And then the second single after Handled with Care, which again would have been peaking on the charts at the end of um, 88, End of the Line comes out as a single in early 89.
Hmm.
So, and the Traveling Wilburys they had a long shelf life. And I
Yeah.
remember it felt like years. They were constants on the radio. Um, I wanted to add that on to 1989.
Mhm.
So while I was going to go with 73, here it is, 74 and 89, I decided to go with 71, 74, and 89. But it's interesting to examine how successful the years were. Um, and if I had gone with like my firsts and my memories, I mean, I remember Power to the People coming out around the time I turned 6. That was 71. Uncle
Mhm.
Albert Admiral Halsey was, I believe, my first McCartney record. Again, I'm 6. I got that single. I got It Don't Come Easy.
Mhm.
Had that single as well. Um, so 71 for me had a lot of personal,
Yeah.
um, you know, meaning. Now, some of you were saying, but Darren, it's 2025. You're 6 years old now, aren't you? Uh, what I say to you. So those are the years for me. Ultimately, 71, 74, 89.
Mhm.
Um, and that's that.
Mhm.
All excellent picks. And yeah, I really should have said something about the Traveling Wilburys in '89 as
It
well.
was, you know what it is, because the whole success of the Wilbur, it was that period that for me, I think for all of us, started, I believe, was it Tom Petty's Into the Great White? No, no, no. It was before that.
Full
Into
Moon
the Great White
Fever.
Open was early 90s. Full Moon Fever was 89.
Mhm.
But Cloud
Wildflowers?
Nine was before that. Hmm?
Wildflowers? Is that the
No,
album?
that was in the 90s. I'm
Oh,
trying to
okay.
remember what was all of a sudden Jeff Lynne was the hottest
Oh, yeah.
producer.
Hmm.
He
Not as a
was.
recording act, because he hadn't put anything out in the
Hmm.
by the mid 80s. But Armchair Theater was in the 90s, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
Hmm.
So what was the first thing that Jeff Lynne produced that was a smash? Was it Cloud Nine? Or was
I
it
think
something
it
Yeah, I'm
before it?
pretty
I
sure.
think it was. And then Roy Orbison's last album, when You
Right.
Mystery.
Got It, that was like 89, I think. Hmm.
Right. And he produced, though it didn't get as much traction, Del Shannon
Hmm.
Hmm.
and Full Moon Fever, of course. And I was
Yep.
never much of a Tom Petty fan. I think radio killed Tom Petty for me when he was just starting out.
Mm,
Um, but Full Moon Fever
great
was
album.
and when that came out at that time, there was a time where I thought this might be the best album, my favorite album by anyone. And I
Hmm.
couldn't believe it was Tom Petty because I was pretty
Yeah.
passive of a fan. Again, Jeff Lynne.
Hmm.
So Traveling Wilburys were in that whole it's almost easy to forget within that whole Jeff Lynne
Yeah.
uh, bubble that was in the late 80s, early 90s. And anyway,
Hmm.
so
So we all had great
that's
picks.
it.
Hmm.
So those are picks. What are yours? If you want to share them in comments,
Yes.
if you want to make some stuff up and have us rummaging through our books, going, I didn't know that album came. I've never heard of that album. What's he talking about? Put them in comments, and I guess we'll put a wrap on things by going
Hmm.
around the horn here and just sharing what we've been up to. I'll go first because things
Hmm.
have been kind of quiet on my end.
Hmm.
Look for me on Facebook and look for me with on the next things we said today. I think we're going to record a new show in just under a week from now. Today is Monday the 22nd. So I think in about a week we're going to make a new show with Alan Kozin. So look for that. Look for me on Facebook. Kit?
Mhm. All right. Well, first of all, you can reach us here at Talk More Talk at talkmoretalksolo@gmail.com. You can, of course, find us right here on YouTube, and please subscribe if you haven't already, and you'll be notified of any new episodes coming up. You can also find us on Facebook. You can give us a like, and you'll also be notified of any of our upcoming shows. And we post stuff on there as well, so you'll be in the know. And of course, talkmoretalk.com. So that's where you can reach us. As far as I go, of course, you can find me on kiddotool.com. You can find me on Facebook. And pretty soon, I mean, maybe by the time this is released, I'm not sure, our next episode of Toppermost the Poppermost will be out. It's the last show of June 1963. It was such a big month, we had to do multiple sides, as we call them. So look for that. You can find us at toppermostofthepoppermost.net. And we're also on Facebook. You can join our group, and we have great discussions there. As Ken said, look out for more information soon about our panel at the upcoming Rubber Soul Conference in November. And and I guess the only other thing was I was recently on our friend Ed Crawford's channel, Call Me Mr. Broadstreet, where we talked about the upcoming releases, like the John's upcoming box set and anthology and so forth. And we had an interesting discussion about who are they marketing these products to? Is it first generation? Is it the youngest generation? How are they? It was just a wide-ranging conversation. So go over to Call Me Mr. Broadstreet and check that out, and let us know what you think. And I think that's everything.
Right, Ken.
Mhm.
What's the deal, Ken? What's the frequency, Kenneth? Oh, that's REM. That's another show.
Another show.
How about what's the buzz?
Yep.
If you'd like to reach me, my email address is everylittlething@att.net. As far as my other podcast, Beatles podcast, Things We Said Today, which I do with Darren and Alan Cozen, our most recent show, we did an interview with Joe Riola, who is the organizer behind the Theater Within tributes to John Lennon, which he's been doing every year since John died. 45, the 45th one is coming up December 12th at Town Hall in New York City. And he talks about the whole history of how these tribute shows came to be. And we're going to have lots of links in our description box for many of the news items that I mentioned, including for the John Lennon tribute show. We have a new Things We Said Today coming out next week. We'll do another session next week for that show. On Ken Michaels Radio, I just did an interview, which should be going up shortly, with Bill Last. Bill was one of the writers for Good Day Sunshine magazine. He's helped Charles Rosenay out with many of his conventions. He's a big, big, big Beatle collector. He put out this book recently, The Beatles Collected Videography, a guide to collecting group and solo video 1962 to 2024. It's basically a list of everything that's come out commercially and even not commercially of video from the group and solo careers of the Beatles. And if there's a video for which many versions were done, several versions of We Can Work It Out and Day Tripper, it's in there. The different videos, Paul's made so many of them. My God, there are videos in there that they call internet videos that just premiere on the internet, especially all the Lennon ones from the Lennon box sets that have come out. Lots of videos are made for that. They're listed in here. TV performances, films, you name it. It's listed here in this book. So this interview will be posted very, very soon on Ken Michaels Radio, and I'll be doing another Beatles Preferences show this coming week when I ask my guests to pick between songs and albums which ones they prefer, group or solo. I'm hoping to have Toppermost of the Poppermost on very soon so they can pick. Not saying which they feel is the better of the two or three songs or best, but what they prefer to listen to. It's a real fun show.
Yeah.
You know, very light, entertaining, and we're going to have that sometime this week. As far as Every Little Thing, my radio show, there's two ways you can listen. The easiest way is by going to WFDU's website, and that's WFDU.FM. They have an archival page there for all of their shows, which they keep up there for 2 weeks each show. And they do air on their live broadcast on the FM and on the stream. My show, Every Little Thing, twice during the week, Saturday mornings at 6 a.m., Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. And then after that, you can hear those shows on the archival page. So there's, if there's all these different ways you could listen, whether it's live on the air or in the archival pages. And then on my own website, kenmichaelsradio.com, there's a page for Every Little Thing with a listing of all the radio stations that carry it, the broadcast times, and links to their websites so you can stream them that way. So if you have a free moment on a Wednesday night and you want to find out where can I listen to Every Little Thing, go to my website, the Every Little Thing page. It's all listed by the day of the week, and you can click on the radio station and listen then, or listen to the archive versions that are on WFDU. And of course, on my website, kenmichaelsradio.com, there's Beatles trivia every single week. You can win one of 10 great Beatle prizes like CDs, DVDs, and books. That's at the Beatles trivia and games page. And I think that's everything.
And before we say goodbye, I actually should come clean, I think. I was very vague a few minutes ago about what I've been up to of late. And if anyone who's watching the show has paid attention to Facebook, you might be aware of the fact that after 41 years on WFUV, I was let go, laid off, kicked to the curb, shown the door as a result of the cuts in funding to public broadcasting. Corporation for Public Broadcasting shut down, and WFUV is one of the many radio and television outlets that's a public station, depending on government support, but also depending on listener support, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the funding hit the lack of CBB funding hit WFUV, and a bunch of us were let go, unfortunately. So I started there in 1984. WFUV is a station that is run by and owned by Fordham University. I was a full-time employee of Fordham, technically, for 33 years and on the air for 41. And unfortunately, it did all come to an end a couple of weeks ago. So I've been kind of like dodgy about how I'm sharing info, but it's like I threw up all over Facebook the other day, so it's all out there now. So that is my deal. So you could send checks and no, I'm kidding. So I'm like in the process now, basically reinventing myself. Now I know what some of you are saying. Could you do something about the lack of hair, Darren, please? And not that kind of reinventing, but I can tell you this, that I will be coming back better than ever and doing something short of sweeping the floors here at home. I love doing these podcasts, so that's going to keep me busy. And just look for me on Facebook, the two Facebook pages I have. Land on one, and I'll invite you to the other kind of deal. And look for me here on Talk More Talk and things we said today. And who knows down the pike what happens. And it was a long ride. It was a crazy, strange trip, and I am blessed and so fortunate to have this career that I had. But as George said, all things must pass. So I passed. I didn't pass. It sounds like I either died or broke wind.
I was
But
going to say, past what?
yeah, so this is the new and improved, Darren. Watch
Yep.
out, world. I've
Yep.
showered.
Yep, absolutely. You're going to come back bigger and better.
And you will
Bigger or
always.
not, I don't need to be bigger right now. I barely fit on the screen here now, but so that's my deal. That's why I know millions of you are running to the radio looking for me at WFUV and go, where is he?
Yeah.
But it's got to be comforting to know how many people wrote in showing
Yeah.
their support for you. I mean, what an outpour,
Yeah, it was
sir.
wonderful.
You know, and you will always have a home here
Yep,
and things we said today, and we're going to follow you whether you like it or not.
exactly.
You can't keep us away.
Yeah,
We're
well, thank you.
stalkers.
I appreciate that. And I do appreciate anyone, again, who's watching this, who's aware from Facebook. Now you're aware from being a Talk More Talk fan. Like, it was a great run. I mean,
Yep.
in one place for 41 years. You could say, well, the very early stages was college radio. You were getting your feet wet. Yeah, but I was on the air a lot in the 1980s. And there were times
Yeah.
that I mean, just look at my grades at Fordham University. I was on the air more than I was in a classroom. There was one semester where I roughly figured out it wasn't even close. I was on the air more than I was in the classroom. Uh,
Wow.
and that ended up being the place that I landed when they made changes and
Mhm.
started bringing in professional employees and kind of shifted the station around. And it was kind of like, oh, gee, Darren, by the way, you interested in a weekly air shift? Sign me up.
Yep.
And well, it came to a close. So
Mhm.
I'm looking for another door, and there's a few of them in my sights that I'm going to be
Excellent.
opening.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Great news.
we're all rooting for you.
Yeah,
All right,
absolutely.
thank you, thank you,
Mhm.
and thanks
Maybe.
everyone for tuning in tonight. To Talk More Talk. And on behalf of Kiddo 2 and Ken Michaels, I'm Darren DeVivo, and we will see you next time.
Take care.
Bye.